Another letdown by the Terps.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your days. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, new potential hires can feel like high-stakes wagers for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. The Maryland basketball team lets us down again. Just when you think we take a step forward, just when you think we got things going, just when you think we're on the right path, when we have things figured out, when I think that we have more depth, and when I think more guys are going to be able to contribute, and multiple guys I think are more in rhythm now, we go back to where we were. And that's what we are as a basketball team at this point in the season. We're not a consistent basketball team. We're very inconsistent. I don't know why I thought for some reason we might be able to go on some roll. Maybe that was just me being hopeful. It was just me being hopeful. This team is nothing special. And I had to get that out. They're nothing special, this team. When they take a step forward, they always take a step back to go back to where they were. And I don't know whose fault that is. I don't know if it's the players. I don't know if that's Kevin Willard's fault. I don't know. I would like to say it's everyone's fault in the building for not figuring it out, not being able to balance stuff out, not being able to put up consistent performances. I don't know whose fault exactly it is, but I'm going to blame it on everyone. And it does start with Kevin Willard not having the guys ready to play, not having everyone ready to go off the bench, just not having an overall top-notch performance against Michigan State on the road. Obviously, things aren't going to be perfect, but I expect a better performance than what I saw against Michigan State. The Terps lose 63-54. Yes, it was a road game. Yes, we have to travel there. Yes, it's a tough place to play. Yes, Michigan State is also battling to maybe somehow make a run at the tournament. But what I saw for the Maryland team, I just didn't like. I just didn't like. It wasn't a blowout. It was close a lot of the game. But if we're being honest, I don't know how, but to me, the game felt a little bit closer than it actually was. Like, it never felt like we were going to be able to actually win the game. It's like Michigan State always had the lead except for at one point, but it never felt like we were going to win the game. It always felt like they kind of had control. At least that's what I thought. Yes, it got kind of close at a point, and we took the lead even in the second half with like under 5 minutes left. We took the lead, and they took it right back, and then went on a run, like an 8-0 run, and we weren't in it anymore. Overall, I'm just disappointed in the Terps' loss. I'm disappointed in the end game execution. But the thing is, like, I can feel it coming when it's like we don't have a shot at winning the game. It felt like Michigan State was a better team. I think they're the better team. I think they're more balanced. I think they show up to play. I think they're much better coached. I just think overall Michigan State was the better team. I think they're the better team on paper as well. So I don't want to sit here and be like, I thought Maryland was going to win. I did predict Maryland would win, which is probably a dumb prediction on the road against Michigan State. What was I thinking? The Terps aren't going to win that type of game probably with this team. I think I just got excited with a couple of wins that we've had against Nebraska and against Iowa. And even though we dropped one to Michigan State at home and we dropped one Northwestern, I still kind of felt good because every game had been close to that point. But we moved to 5-6 in the Big Ten, and we moved to the lower part of the Big Ten, and now we're only in front of the teams that are doing quite bad in the Big Ten that are just not good enough, the teams that aren't good. We're in front of Michigan, Rutgers, Ohio State, Penn State. Those teams are struggling this year. Those teams, they're just not very good at basketball this year. The teams aren't very good, and so we move kind of to the bottom part where we could have moved ourselves to entering the top of the Big Ten with an above 500 record. Now we're going to have to fight to get it back to 500 next game. But overall, I was just disappointed. I thought we took another step back. Things that we were doing before we started doing, again, things that we were doing when we were losing, even at the beginning of the season. This looked like one of those games really early on. And I know it was close. I know it was close at the end. But this game still gave me the vibe of a loss to UAB or a loss to Davidson or the loss to Villanova. It was a lot of the same type of patterns that we saw in that type of game. And the number one thing, the pattern that was the same was offensive production. Offensive production was horrible, terrible. The worst I've seen so far from the Terps this year in a while in Big Ten play. We could not score against this Michigan State team. We only scored 54 points. You're not going on the road to beat Michigan State, to beat Tom Izzo, to beat a really solid team in that program, in that elite kind of status that they have, a blue blood like that, putting up 54 points on the road. You're not going to win the game like that. You're just not. And I don't know, back to my point, I don't know whose fault it is. I know it's not Jameer Young's fault. I know he's doing all that he can. But other than that, and Dante Scott tried to make shots, and he came away with like a solid stat line with 13 points. But other than that, nobody did anything. We take a step back. Just when I think we don't have to depend on Jameer Young, because I saw it against Nebraska. I saw other guys stepped up. I saw balanced scoring. I saw Kaiser come off the bench and do some things. I saw Jahari Long do some things off the bench. Just when I thought we weren't going to be super Jameer Young dependent, it was right back to being Jameer Young dependent. Just when I thought our offensive production was going to be better, it was back to being terrible. Back to what I saw in the Villanova game, where we put up 15 points at the half. Or early on, where we can barely score against the UABs of the world, and we can't score against an Indiana type of team. It looks like we're back to square one. I mean, we're not all the way back to square one, obviously, but it just feels like the problems are still there, is the point. There's no point of me acting like they're not there. I shouldn't do that. And that was on me for saying like that this team for some reason is like different now. And I do think we have gotten better. And I don't think this loss is probably as bad as I'm making it sound. But it's just really disappointing how we play offensively some games. 54 points is just not going to get it done. And poor shooting, that also is another step back. We've been shooting the ball decently well in a couple of these games. We have shot the three ball pretty well. We shot 23% from the three-point arc against Michigan State. You're just not going to win like that. You're not going to win games like that. You're just not. Other than Jameer Young and Dante Scott, nobody else hit a three. They combined for 7 threes. Dante Scott had 3. Jameer Young had 4 threes. Nobody else hit a three-point shot. It's just not going to work. We're going to need someone else to hit a shot on the team overall. Really bad. Just a bad loss, in my opinion. No bench scoring as well. That's another step back. I was convinced after the Nebraska game that we were going to have bench scoring all of a sudden, that guys were going to be able to score the ball, that guys were going to be able to do stuff like that. No bench scoring against this Nebraska team. Jamie Kaiser didn't score. Jahari Long had 2 points. And while Kaiser had 0 from the bench, and Caleb Swatton-Rogers also played minutes off the bench. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying we had no bench scoring. We shot the 3-ball poorly. We had no offensive production. It was pretty poor. We were way too Jameer Young dependent. What does it sound like? It sounds like how it sounded early on the season, like we just took multiple steps back, like we're right back to where we started. Things don't look great. Things don't look great at all. March Madness bid, I don't want to talk about that. I don't think that's in the cards. It's not realistic for us to say that this team can go on some type of win streak. You got to be able to score the ball. And the thing that disappoints me maybe the most is that we played so well defensively again. We lived up to that top 10 on KenPom in terms of defensive statistics. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And it's annoying to waste such a good defensive performance like that. Forcing Michigan State to 63 points, that's a pretty good day on the road. You would think Maryland might be able to win the game if they force Michigan State to 63 points. But it wasn't good enough. We take a step back. We seem like we go back to where we were early on in the season. And just when you think the Terps are taking a step forward with the win against Iowa and the win against Nebraska, they take a step right back on the road against Michigan State. Pretty disappointing performance, in my opinion, especially on one side of the ball offensively. But Let's see. We'll see if we rebound. We'll see if we can come back and get back to 500. But overall, definitely a disappointing performance. One player disappointed me the most. I will tell you about that player and why his performance was so bad and how this year has gone for him after this ad from LinkedIn Jobs. These days, new potential hires can feel like high-stakes wagers for a small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. A lot of people need jobs right now. If you want to find someone amazing for your company, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon. That's linkedin.com/lockedon to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates faster. Julian Reese's performance was one to forget, and he let us down. Just like the overall, a lot of guys on the team, but number one candidate, maybe for this loss and to let us down at certain points in the season for sure, has been Julian Reese. And I don't want to talk bad about Julian Reese, and I don't want to critique him and say that he played poorly and that he didn't get it done. But he's such a good player, and he's such a talented player. He's a Big Ten talent. He's an all Big Ten type of talent. He's got the size. He's got the athleticism. He's made of the right stuff. He has a lot of God-given abilities for sure. He's got a lot of talent. He has a lot of different things about his game that he's got going. He's a really good rebounder. He's a pretty good passer out the post. He can post down low. He's athletic. He can dunk the ball. He can play defense. He can block shots. He can do a lot of different things, Julian Reese can. But when he has performances like he did on Saturday evening against Michigan State, you're going to have to talk about it for probably the biggest reason we lost. I'm not saying we win the game if Julian Reese plays more minutes, but we probably, I think, or it comes down right to the wire. But it's just interesting if you go back and look at Julian Reese's trajectory, because I was looking at it and I was like, technically, statistically, this has been still his best year yet. And if you go through the stats, I think I kind of overdid a little bit of the struggles, but there has been multiple times where he has just completely gone away. But last year, he was a really good player for us. And I went back and it was like he averaged 11.4 points per game and 7 rebounds. Last year's team was a little bit more balanced. Different guys scored the ball overall, but 11.4 points. I don't know why. For some reason, I thought he did a little bit more than that. And this year, he's averaged about 13.1 points per game with 9.7 rebounds. So he has technically improved statistically overall. And I don't remember exactly what happened last year. I'm sure there were games where he disappeared and didn't do much. But it's just interesting because this year we are so dependent on him. We need this guy. Obviously, we're dependent on Jameer Young to play well, but Jameer Young consistently plays at a pretty high level as we see. He's probably going to be first team all Big Ten, and he has a chance to rack up a couple of awards, I think. But we depend on Julian Reese to score the ball. We depend on him to be our second option. He's probably just pure talent-wise, not skill-based, not anything skill. He's probably our most talented player overall. I think he is. I think it's safe to say Julian Reese is our most talented player. Maybe he's not our best every day. Maybe he doesn't live up to it always, but he's probably our most talented player. But he let us down on Saturday. He had one of those games, the Reese games that I was just talking about, where he doesn't even he barely plays in the game. He barely scores in the game. He barely does anything in the game. And if you think we're going on the road against Michigan State and winning with what Julian Reese put up his stat line the minutes he played, the foul trouble that he was in, we had no shot. It's a key every single game because it's happened before. If Julian Reese has one of those type of games where he doesn't play a lot and he's in foul trouble and all that type of stuff, we won't beat a Michigan State type of team. We won't beat them. We aren't good enough as a team. We don't have enough options. And if you would have told me that Julian Reese played 14 minutes the entire game, 14 minutes the entire game, I would have said we probably lost by 15. We probably lost by 15 because Caleb Swan-Rogers, I don't know with him. He's big and he can block some shots and rebound, but like he doesn't offer really anything offensively. He can dunk the ball, but that's really it. And when he comes in the game, it's hard for us to score because he's kind of like Jordan Geronimo in a lot of ways. It's just not that his game isn't offensively prioritized. And the way our team is right now, we need guys that can score the ball to be out there, guys that can post up down low, guys like Julian Reese. We need that down low. And so when he is in foul trouble, which has killed Julian Reese at times, and I have multiple views on this. A couple of the fouls, once he picked up two in the first half. For him to pick up the third in the first half is just like, come on. I kind of hate the foul rules in college basketball, honestly. I'm not saying it should be 6 fouls like the NBA. I'm not trying to make excuses now for him. It is kind of annoying, though, that some of your best players, that it's kind of decided by, like, it can be like a cheapy kind of foul. But the point is you got to learn how to play without fouling. And he hasn't proven to do that. He hasn't proven that he can play without fouling. So this was my biggest question mark, and this is one of the worst decisions I've seen Kevin Willard make. I understand you have to take some risk in this type of game, but why is Julian Reese out there in the first half with 2 fouls? He doesn't know how to play without fouling. He just doesn't. He's not a good basketball player in that terms of playing without fouling. So I'm not going to put him in with 2 fouls. We have a lot of evidence to say that he's not good at it. Some guys can do it. Some guys know how to play with 2 fouls or 3 fouls or whatever it is, 4 fouls. Julian Reese is not one of those guys. So let's not put him back in the game in the first half with 2 fouls and for him to pick up 3 before we even start the second half. You cannot do that. He's not the type of guy to be able to play with 2 fouls overall. I haven't seen him do that. That was a bad decision by Kevin Willard, and that was a big decision that may have cost us the game and may have cost us our season, honestly. I mean, probably not that much extreme, probably not the season, but I can say that it cost us the game maybe, right? Because we could have won that game if Julian Reese can play more minutes in the second half. The game was in shouting distance after the first half. It wasn't like we were getting blown out. We were in the game. So if he plays more minutes in the second half, more than 14 minutes the entire game, then I think we have a shot. I think we have a much better shot than what we did if we play him with 2 fouls and he picks up his third. And then the one he picked up in the second half was terrible. It's like, what are you doing? You're asking to pick up a foul. I hated that foul that he picked up in the second half overall. But he played 14 minutes, had 2 points. 2 points from Julian Reese. Our second leading scorer, our second best player, guy that we need a lot of production from, had 2 points. We just aren't going to win like that straight up. We're not going to win games like that. We're not talented enough. We're not deep enough. We're not Kentucky. Go watch that Kentucky team. Even though maybe they don't win every game. I mean, they're a top 20 team in the country. They're a really good team in the country. But they have depth for days. If one guy's out, if their starting point guard DJ Wagner's out, they have 2 other freshmen that are really good players in Dillingham and the other kid that I'm forgetting his name. And then they have 4 or 5 centers that are like really good players, and they have 3 or 4 forwards that can play. We're not Kentucky. We don't have guys for days off the bench that can play, is my point. We have Julian Reese. If he's not in foul trouble, he's probably playing like 35 minutes compared to he goes for 14 minutes for 2 points, 2 turnovers, 2 rebounds. It's horrible. It's terrible. It's one of his worst games, if not the worst games this season. And it sucks to say that it might not even be his worst game this season. That's how inconsistent he's been, and it's been disappointing this year for him. He's shown flashes of what he can do, and he's had a lot of really solid performances. But for him to put up foul trouble, for him to put up 14 minutes, 2 points, have as many turnovers as he did points with the limited amount of minutes he played, and 2 rebounds, we weren't going to win the game like that. And like I said, he's had games like that. He had 0 against Purdue. He had 1 against UCLA. We weren't going to beat Purdue like that. We happened to beat UCLA like that because Jameer Young drops like 37. But is that going to happen? No. And Jameer Young had almost 30 against Michigan State, but it's not going to matter if nobody else performs overall. So he let us down. I think it's safe to say that Julian Reese let us down and that he didn't play good basketball. And credit to Michigan State, I guess, for getting him into foul trouble, but he definitely let the Terps community down, only playing 14 minutes. Obviously, some of that is like, it's on Kevin Willard, some of it. You don't play him with 2 fouls. And I hope they fix that. Overall. But a key Maryland player is returning that I want to make sure I touch on. I will tell you about that after this ad from FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring a seat on the couch and grabbing your favorite football snacks. Super Bowl Sunday is one of the best days of the year, to be honest. I think about it as a holiday. It's a good time with family, friends, whoever you like to hang out with, or if you want to watch the game by yourself and just eat great food, pizza, wings, whatever it is. And FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a dub or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Fanaje Gote, Maryland linebacker, is returning to College Park for his 7th season, and I think it's big for Maryland for multiple reasons. Number one, Gote is great experience back there in the linebacking room, and I'm happy to talk a little bit of football after all this bad basketball, but Fanaje Gote, I think, provides really good experience in the back end of the Maryland linebacker room. I think he's a really good player back there. 7th season, obviously, he has a lot of experience as a Maryland player. I think he's gone through a good amount. He's going to be able to be a leader in there. He's been through the ups and downs of the Maryland program, and I love the experience. I think you need guys like this. And he's also a really good football player. Had 48 tackles last year, which is good for a 600 team, and that's with the linebackers rotating a ton, like Jayshawn Barham played a ton, and Ruben Hippolyte played a lot, and Wheatland played a lot, and, of course, Gote, I'm talking about now, played a lot. They love to rotate guys, so for him to still have 48 tackles really looked good, and I think it helps our linebacker room because at first I thought it was a possibility we could lose Barham, which we did, which Barham is a really talented player, and it's still kind of sad that he goes to Michigan, and maybe he wouldn't have gone if Coach Harbaugh hadn't left. I don't know. But he still probably would have entered somewhere else. It's kind of disappointing that we lost Barham, but I thought we could lose Barham. I thought we could lose Hippolyte, and I thought we could lose Gote. So I thought those 3 guys in our linebacker room that we could lose, and right now we only lost 1. And you can replace 1 guy with the experience that we have in that linebacker room. I think we have a ton of guys that can play, and we have younger guys that are going to be stepping up. So he's a great depth piece, but he also is going to play a lot. Him, Wheatland, and Hippolyte, I like that room for us. I think it's a very solid room in the Big Ten. He also played well in the Music City Bowl with 6 tackles for the Terps. So overall, I love that Fanaje Gote is coming back. I think he's a really solid player. I think he embodies Maryland football, and I can't wait to see what he does. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.